and time, and the Electoral Commission has employed both. As a commission, we have devoted the last few weeks to correct the discrepancies, and you will find that the provisional voters register today is different and more accurate than what was exhibited and provided to the parties in August 2024. It is important to note that the Commission, in cleaning the provisional voters register, employed a rigorous four-pronged approach as follows. Voters who visited our exhibition centers and who viewed their details via electronic media and detected errors with their details visited our district offices and had their issues rectified. Our exhibition officers in all our 40,000 plus exhibition centers scrutinized the register and reported discrepancies for correction by our IT team. Our field staff, namely our district officers and our regional officers, relied also on the register viewer, that is a soft copy of the register on their machines, to scrutinize the register and correct discrepancies. Our IT staff also utilized the register viewer to scrutinize the register and correct discrepancies. This approach has been very effective in helping to clean the register and rid it of discrepancies. As mentioned earlier, the discrepancies detected to date have been largely corrected, and the register that was presented to parties in early August is very different from what we have today. For the records, this same approach was adopted by the Commission prior to the production of the final voters register in 2020, and it worked effectively. Evidence shows that despite concerns raised about the effectiveness of that 2020 register to deliver a credible election, there were no voters who were denied the opportunity to vote during the 2020 election. This is the same approach we have adopted to clean the 2024 provisional voters register, and we have no doubt that it will deliver the same outcome, namely a credible and robust final voters register ahead of the 2024 election. As the body mandated by Article 45A of the 1992 Constitution to compile the register of voters and to revise it at such periods as may be determined by law, we urge you all to trust us to perform our functions as enshrined in the Constitution. The Commission has a track record and is globally respected for delivering free, fair, credible, and transparent elections and electoral processes, and this includes the compilation of the provisional voters register. Our staff are well trained and have the capacity and the competencies, as well as the skills, to undertake the task of producing a final and credible voters register. We certainly do not require external assistance in our line of work. By way of information, there exist legal and administrative processes that we follow from the registration exercise until the final voters register is produced. Right after the registration exercise, we institute what we call the district registration review committees, who sit in all districts to hear challenge cases presented by the citizenry. And we have the political parties, traditional authority, the security agencies as part of this committee, and they sit in every district. We have one in every district, and the composition, as I mentioned, includes representatives of the political parties. Following that, we go to what we call the adjudication process, and this also involves the political parties who adjudicate on persons who are brought up by the IT systems. and for a determination to be made as to whether they undertook multiple registrations or not. Here again, we have representatives of the political parties who work with the Commission to establish the rules and to take the decisions concerning these persons who are unearthed. Then we go to the exhibition of the provisional register, and this allows for an inspection and correction of discrepancies. Following that, we have the sittings of the district registration review officers, and these are magistrates appointed by the Chief Justice of Ghana to every district, and they hear and rule on cases including the objections to persons on the voters register. It is followed by the review and authentication of the magistrates appointed in each of the districts. Following their reviews and rulings on each of the cases, our district officers then implement the decisions of the magistrates. It is followed by a verification of the implementation of these decisions by our regional directorate headed by our regional directors. Following that, we then at the head office compose a team made up of IT and electoral services who then verify that all the decisions and all the recommendations provided have been fully implemented. It is after this stage that a final voters register is produced. And so you see the processes that we go through to arrive at the final voters register. As we speak, our district officers are implementing the decisions and recommendations of the district registration review officers, that is the magistrates. You will attest to the fact, ladies and gentlemen, from the above narration, that the production of the final voters register is a process. It is not a one-time event. Indeed, it does not happen overnight. It takes time from the completion of the registration exercise until the final voters register is produced. As noted earlier, our district officers are currently implementing the decisions of the magistrates, and this process will be followed by a verification and an audit of the provisional register by our regional staff, followed by our head office team. I like to state at this point that these processes have not been exhausted, and it is a position of the Commission that the call for a forensic audit is therefore premature. Ladies and gentlemen, in the spirit of transparency and accountability, the Commission will in the coming days re-exhibit the provisional voters register online. We have developed an online platform to allow voters review their registration details at no cost to the voter. Additionally, we will provide a time period within which voters will be able to report on any discrepancies they have with their registration details in the districts where they registered and have them resolved. The idea to allow a second exhibition of the provisional voters register is part of our efforts to open up our processes and to ensure that our register is robust and accurate for the 2024 election. We urge all voters to review their details and to present any discrepancies they may have to us. This process, we believe, will certainly guarantee a further cleaning of the register. In the coming days, the Commission will announce the time frame within which voters can submit their discrepancies or the discrepancies they detect with their details. And we reiterate that voters will be able to check these details free of all charges. As a further step towards transparency, the Commission will also provide all the political parties with copies of the revised provisional voters register. The political parties will have the opportunity to review the revised provisional voters register and report any discrepancies they may find with the register. We urge the parties to see this as a national assignment and not as a partisan assignment. Let us put Ghana first and put our hands to the plow and collectively clean the provisional voters register to ensure that it is robust ahead of the 2024 election. Indeed, the Commission has developed a template which it will share with political parties to allow them to report discrepancies they find with the register and present same to the Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, we are mindful of the importance of the voters register in an election. It is a bedrock of any election. Indeed, an accurate voters register is sine qua non for a fair, transparent, and credible election. It is in our interest as a Commission to produce a credible and robust final voters register. We did this in 2020, and we will do it again in 2024. We urge you all and the citizens of Ghana to trust us. We will not fail you. We will not disappoint you. And we commit and pledge to conducting and undertaking a free, fair, transparent, and credible election come December 2024. So help us God. May God bless our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to have a presentation from the IT department of the Electoral Commission. But let me inform the House that this special IPAC meeting is being carried live on all major TV and radio networks, as well as live streaming on the Electoral Commission social media handles. I'd like to cede the podium to Dr. Yaweje, Dr. Yao Upori Eje, to continue with us. Thank you very much, Fred. Good morning, Madam Chairperson, deputies, commissioners, the political parties here represented, civil society organizations, members of the diplomatic corps. Good morning once again. We seem to have a bit of a technical challenge, so we'll wait a bit for the projector screen to be fixed, and then I'll be able to do my presentation on behalf of the IT department of the Electoral Commission. The issue seems to have been resolved. So good morning once again. The title of my presentation this morning is the 2024 Provisional Voters Register, a review of the processes, issues observed, and their resolution. As has been said by Madam Chair, the exhibition of the Voters Register is a process that is required by law in order for us to have a very clean Voters Register. And it is important that as a commission, we are able to produce a register that is credible to ensure free and fair election. It is also important for us to be able to let the public and all stakeholders who are involved in the production of the register to understand the various processes that we undertake to ensure that the register is clean, credible, and will ensure that there's a transparent election come December 2024. And therefore, my presentation this morning will be situated on the processes that we've undertaken so far to ensure that the register is clean, and also carry along everybody to understand the processes that we undertake. I believe that in this particular method, we will be able to let people understand the various issues that come about when a register is being produced. And we will also elucidate the problems that we've had with the register that requires that it be fixed. So my agenda of the presentation this morning is to review the various Electoral Commission's processes. As has been said by Madam Chair, we have received some complaints from the National Democratic Congress which demanded for an audit of the register, a forensic audit of the register. We will look at those issues as well. Fine. Okay, I think this is better. We will look at those issues that have been raised by the NDC and we'll give you some commentary on it, as well as for us all to understand that even though some of these issues were brought up by the National Democratic Congress, these are issues that the Commission had already picked up and had resolved the majority of them. But it's important for us to address them so that we all are clear in our minds that the issues as raised have been dealt with and are no longer issues. And we will also let you know some of the issues that we encountered during the exhibition exercise and how we fixed it. So as I've already said, and Madam Chair has also eloquently earlier on said, the production of the final voters register is not an event. It is not a single event. There are various processes that we undertake to ensure that the voters register that we finally use for the election is clean. And this involves processes right from the registration of eligible voters all the way to the setting of the DRROs. So in between them, we've got transfer of voters, we've got registration for special voting, we've got proxy voting registration, all that leading to an exhibition. And after the exhibition, we have the DRRC sitting, the DRRO sitting, and then finally we get to the final voter register. It is also important to realize that extensive work has been done during the exhibition period with collaboration with voters themselves who have gone to the various exhibition centers to explain their issues, as well as active participation by the Electoral Commission staff itself. So I will quickly move on to review the processes that we undertake, and we'll start with registration. This is a flow diagram of what happens during the registration process, and it starts with the applicants themselves. So your applicant would start by going to the registration center. He appears before your registration officer, and the registration officer will go through the process of checking for the eligibility of the person, whether he's a Ghanaian, he's about the age of 18, he's of sound mind. And then if he meets all that criteria, he's allowed to fill a Form 1A. Once the Form 1A is completed, he then goes to have his biometrics captured. We will recollect that in 2020, the registration that was done was largely an offline registration, mass registration. And so we took your details and to our data center for processing. It's important to note this difference because now in 2024, and indeed even in 2023, we changed that mode of registration. We now included the online registration that allow for us to be able to immediately check when somebody is registering whether they have already registered before. The importance of this step is that it prevents the long process of deduplication. Deduplication is the process where we go through our entire database and try and remove duplicates from the system. And it is a laborious, long, drawn process. Our ability to do the online registration now means that at the time that the person presents to the registration officer, we are able to check to be sure whether he's in the database or not. If it's already in the database, registration does not proceed and the person goes away. If it's not in there, then we get a registration. Having said that, for the 2024 season, we did have some offline registration, and these were registrations to places that were difficult to reach, difficult to access, riverine areas where we didn't even have communication to be able to do the online registration. But it was very minimal. Majority of the registrations that were done for the 2024 season was done through the online registration method. So once that is done, an applicant might either be challenged here. Now, if you are challenged, your voter ID card is retained, and you are given a time to appear at the DRRC to justify why you should be included onto the register. If there's no challenge, if there's no issues, you are then allowed to take your card away, and then your registration completes here. So that's the registration process. And it is important for us to understand that we have two routes, the online and then the offline. And when we come to the discussion on the missing voters that are reported as being missing, we will realize why the offline registration results in that. Now, this is a slide that we've had since 2020, and it describes our registration process and the various centers that are involved. So you have a registration center, we've got the district offices, and then we've got the data center where we've got our automatic biometric identification system that does all the deduplication to ensure that we have just unique individuals within our voter register. And that is what ensures the one man, one vote. Okay. Now this is the old system, or the earlier system that we had, that was offline. So we had files that needed to be exported from the machine and sent to the district offices, and from the district offices to the data center. As you can see, it's a combination of human resources and IT, and therefore there's always the likelihood that there may be errors along the chain. So for instance, a BVR kit will get damaged, and we may not be able to retrieve all the data that is in the kit, and that might result in certain voters details not being available in the main database. They may have a valid voter card, they may have a valid Form 1A and Form 1C, but because data got lost in transit, they may not show up in the main register, and therefore we will classify those individuals or applicants as missing voters, and there are mechanisms in place to ensure that they are included into the final register. Once all this is done, as I've said, we have the deduplication process. The deduplication process now is only for offline registration. We don't do deduplication for online registration because right at the registration stage, we are able to search for you using all your 10 fingers where available in your face and make sure that you are not on the register. Right. Now, as I've said, the deduplication process, it takes all 10 fingerprints of an applicant and the face and compares it to all 10 fingerprints and applicants of all the 18 million records plus that we currently have in our register. And like I said, it is resource intensive, it takes time, and it is better that we move or strive to move towards online registration that significantly cuts down the time that is required. So if ABIS is able to identify you as having done a registration before, and it is very very confident, at a very high confidence level, automatically would move you onto what we refer to as a multiples list. Remember that in the voter register, we have three possible lists that you can be on. You can be on the valid voter list, the exceptions list, which means that you either have a challenge or an objection to the registration, or you may have you on the multiples list, which means that you have engaged in multiple registration. So if ABIS picks you up as having done a registration before, it then moves you automatically into the multiples list. Sometimes ABIS is not able to determine 100% that this is a unique individual or it is a multiple registration. In that instance, it then flags you for adjudication. And the adjudication is a manual process that is done. And as Madam Chair has already said, ABIS adjudication, we do it together with the political parties and CSOs. So the political parties and CSOs will sit down and then come up with rules that determine the assessment of people who have been determined by ABIS as having done multiple registrations but are not quite sure about it. So the ABIS adjudication process is what I've outlined here. So there's adjudication match in ABIS, which means that ABIS thinks that you've done multiple registration, but it's not sure, 100% sure that it is a multiple registration. So individuals will sit down and then they will look at it. If they think it's unique and that it is, if they think that it is unique and that you haven't done multiple registrations, you are put back on the register. If it is not, you are moved from the register and put onto the multiples list. Now, this adjudication process is not done by one single individual. The way the system is set up, you have people designated as operators and there's a supervisor. So no single individual takes a decision as to whether somebody has done multiple registrations or not. Each operator gets assigned a case, and the cases are assigned blindly and randomly to an operator. So two operators will get a case that is complete. They are not aware that the other person has gotten the case because they are all using different terminals to do this process. If two operators agree that this person is a unique individual, the adjudication process has completed. Two people have agreed that this was a unique registration. The person moves onto the voter list. If the two of them say that they are duplicates, they all agree independently of each other that they are duplicates, they move onto the multiples list. If there's a conflict, then a supervisor's attention is drawn and he will sit down, look at it together with other supervisors.
So that's the live telecast of the EC's Inter-Party Advisory Committee meeting happening now at the Alisa Hotel. Pretty shortly we'll go back there. You heard GHOne, the chairperson of the EC, saying that there will be a re-exhibition of the voter roll online. So if you have any issues, go online and check and then report to the various regional offices of the Electoral Commission for all these discrepancies to be corrected. As it stands, the